In the year of 2019, we can call a spade a spade. There is New England Patriots conspiracy theory fatigue. We are quite frankly tired of hearing what the Patriots have done now. Sure, some of it is well deserved. For all the organization's laurels, it certainly has its thorns. The obvious being Deflategate, the never-ending news story. Or if you want to date yourself, Spygate or the Tuck Rule or the aftermath of any game against the Baltimore Ravens, as it seems like there is always some sort of complaint that they have done something wrong, or something out of the norm at least. Take the deception controversy, for example, which actually happened a week before Deflategate, and as a result didn't receive much coverage. It was a classic case of the Patriots not even really doing anything wrong per se, but rather using the rules to their advantage, as Bill Belichick is known to do. In that game, the Patriots were using confusing formations and sort of melting into a set position to give Baltimore's defense minimal time to target the eligible receivers and set their own formation. Was this illegal at the time? No, but now it sure is. Anyway, this isn't about all of the shady dealings that the Patriots have been part of in the past. Rather, it's about what's happening right now in front of all of us. They just stepped up and signed Antonio Brown, which is simply insane. And it all happened within hours of him being cut by Oakland. It happened so fast that it led many to start wondering if something below board was going on. I mean, the defending world champions, who have won 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls and half of the AFC titles this decade, just added an all-world talent just a few days before the start of the season. And while it might be sensible to just chalk this up to a rich get richer sort of motif, with the Patriots, there is always something more nefarious afoot. San Francisco Chronicle writer Ann Killian, who has been covering Brown's tumultuous time in Oakland, framed his new contract with New England perfectly as, quote, not exactly the kind of deal that gets pulled together in the amount of time it takes to watch a feature film, end quote. Which makes sense, considering the kind of money he lost out on in Oakland and the Pats cap situation. It seems like something just had to be up, especially if you consider Brown's past. Let's take a look at the backstory. Before Antonio Brown's faux trade to Buffalo and his short-lived tenure with the Raiders, there was a time when he played for a certain football team in Pittsburgh, who just so happened to be bitter rivals of the Patriots. The two teams played in a series of big-time playoff games that spread across the better part of 2 decades. And while Antonio Brown used to be a quietly dominant force in the Pittsburgh receiving corps, that seemingly perfect relationship turned cold in the last year or so of his deal there. The man who the Steelers, a storied NFL franchise, drafted in the 6th round and turned into a 7-time Pro Bowler and a 5-time All-Pro selection, mysteriously fell out of love with Pittsburgh and fell hard. There were a flurry of rumors coming out of the Steel City that something was wrong, either his relationship with head coach Mike Tomlin or his relationship with the team's egomaniac QB Ben Roethlisberger. The general consensus was that Antonio Brown ceased to exist anymore, and AB, or worse, Mr. Big Chest, had taken over the 84 jersey for the Steelers. The tension climaxed in the midst of the 2016 playoffs, when Brown broadcasted the team's locker room celebration on Facebook Live. Even worse, the broadcast included head coach Mike Tomlin speaking crudely about their AFC Championship opponent, you guessed it, the New England Patriots. While it didn't seem like a big deal at the time, the franchise was furious, especially after being quickly dispatched by the Pats the following week. And what made it even worse is that Brown had been paid over $200,000 by Facebook before the season to create content, and that this move was part of the deal. Let's just say that the leadership group in Pittsburgh was not pleased with Brown. Following the 2016 season, they probably should have just cut ties if we are being honest. His value was still sky high, and the relationship with him and the team was strained to say the least, but they decided to try and give the Killer Bees one more run at the Super Bowl. At this point, I'm sure you know, it did not work out, and the end result was not pretty. After a series of other mindless public scuffles between Brown and the Steelers, they ended up shipping him off to Oakland during the 2019 offseason, where he was set to team up with head coach John Gruden and quarterback Derek Carr. A lot of people were a little confused by the move. To start, Oakland was coming off of a pitiful season, and its needs extended far beyond wide receiver. It didn't even really make sense from Pittsburgh's point of view either. Sure, public airing of Brown's dirty laundry hurt his value a little, but he is still quite literally one of the top 5 receivers of his generation. Yet, the Steelers somehow only got a 3rd or 5th round pick for him. We're talking about a guy who is just 31 and is coming off of 4 straight first-team All-Pro selections. To just get 2 afterthoughts of draft picks makes 0 sense. Where it gets even weirder is the absolutely bizarre behavior that Brown displayed in Oakland. Between his disgusting feet and his public meltdown over his helmet and the mid-practice spat with the general manager, and his literal wiretapping of John Gruden, which he turned into a beautifully produced PSA, it legitimately got to the point that people thought Brown was suffering from CTE. You'd think that the Hard Knocks production team had scripted it all, but considering they hardly featured any of it, that is ruled out. This all culminated in the Raiders announcing Brown's release in a one-sentence statement minutes before 9 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday, just one day before the first Sunday of the 2019 regular season. A disgruntled star receiver? Not exactly breaking news, but when he jumps to a perennial Super Bowl contender before the ink dries on his termination papers, something just has to be up. Sure, this is the same guy who in 2018 was sued for trashing his Florida apartment and for throwing objects out of the window of his apartment, almost hitting a toddler. And he again found himself in trouble last November when he was charged with, and later convicted of, driving 100 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone in suburban Pittsburgh. Sure, he has shown erratic behavior before Oakland, but when you consider the context of the situation, it just feels shady. Last March, Brown shared on his podcast a telephone conversation he had with his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, where they talked about how great it would be for Brown to play in New England. Rosenhaus alluded to the fact that he had tried to connect the Patriots and Steelers front offices to negotiate a trade, but it was all to no avail, on account of the bitter hatred the franchises have for each other. It has since come out that the Steelers were hell-bent on not trading Brown to the Patriots or to any other team in the AFC North, even though back in March when they had the rights to Brown, the Patriots had prepared a much better trade offer than Oakland did. Chris Mortensen of ESPN reports that the Patriots actually offered a first-round pick for Brown, a pick that is significantly more valuable than a third or fifth. Again, declining to ship off a premier talent to a rival is not anything out of the ordinary, but in looking at the full picture, it seems impossible that this wasn't in the back of AB's mind from the moment he got to Oakland. Maybe it wasn't the plan from the onset, but once the line in the sand was crossed and he felt he had been disrespected by the Raiders for the last time, he had one thing on his mind: getting to New England, his employer of choice from the start. That would kind of explain the ludicrous hype video, if that is what you want to call it, that he released with secretly recorded phone conversations between him and John Gruden, which ultimately served as the nail in his Raiders' coffin. Rosenhaus, flushed with 10%ing pride, explained the situation on SportsCenter as he had to, saying that the market for AB was robust, but the Pats won. He continued to explain, quote, "I've had a lot of clients on the Patriots over the years, including the great Rob Gronkowski, so I know Coach Belichick well. I'm confident this should be a great relationship moving forward," end quote. Yeah, okay, Drew. Keep trying to make it seem like there was no tampering involved here. I know this is more of an NBA thing, but Rosenhaus has been dealing with diva wineouts his whole career, and he knows how to get them into whatever situation they please. And it isn't as if something like this hasn't happened before, between these same two teams nonetheless. Remember in 2014 when LeGarrette Blount was having just the toughest time getting along in Pittsburgh when Le'Veon Bell began to get the bulk of the touches out of the backfield, and he started to act out, culminating in the Steelers running back literally leaving the field before the end of the team's 27-24 win over the Tennessee Titans. Blount would continue to misbehave until the Steelers had no choice but to cut him, or he would continue to sour the locker room. The craziest part was he didn't even deny it. When he was asked for his thoughts on people thinking he had tried to force his way back to New England, he simply said, quote, "No, it doesn't bother me. People are going to assume what they're going to assume. I can't change their minds. It doesn't matter. People don't know what they are talking about. They just know that they think, and everyone is entitled to their opinion, whether it's right or wrong," end quote. While he doesn't offer a clear answer, it's far from a denial. Blount could have easily just put the rumors to bed in that moment. Brown will have to be a touch more strategic when he gets questioned on this one, because considering the fact that it involves shady dealings in Foxborough, the NFL will surely be looking into it. There are some detractors to the conspiracy theory who claim that Brown would not want to tank his public persona any further and give up all the millions he was due in Oakland just to find his way to New England. But if you ask me, they don't know who they are dealing with. Antonio Brown has already earned tens of millions of dollars in the NFL and has a ton of endorsement deals, including the one he finagled out of the whole helmet controversy. But it isn't just that. Brown, for all of his flaws, has always been an undeniably fierce competitor. He has a motor that is rare, particularly in a superstar talent. Brown almost takes more pride in his work ethic than his amazing talent. It's sort of Kobe-esque where he works himself so damn hard that if he sees others around him dragging, it really irks him. And it isn't just that he wants to work hard, put up numbers and earn contracts. Antonio Brown wants to win. He just does. You can see it in how he trains, how he plays, and everything that he does on and around the football field. That's why he fell out of love in Pittsburgh. He didn't feel that they were doing all they needed to do to win. That's why he forced his way out of Buffalo before he was even traded there. And that's why he pushed his way out of Oakland into Bill Belichick's waiting arms in New England. He knows that the Patriots give him the best chance to win a Super Bowl, plus he gets the added bonus of sticking it to the Steelers. Now, this could all be proven wrong in the blink of an eye if he ends up flaming out in New England as well. But I don't know. Belichick doesn't take chances on these kinds of guys if he hasn't thoroughly vetted them first. And if you ask me, Brown is in New England on business, and he could be in line for a frighteningly good season. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so down below by clicking the subscribe button right now. If you like the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune into TPS every single day for more cool videos. We'll see you next time.